I was 25 when I was sent out to spend a couple of nights with George Best, so to speak. A couple of nights turned into 3 months. And people often ask what kept me there. Well, the first answer is the job. I was an ambitious young reporter, and this was the first real juicy story I'd been given to do. But quickly it became about something else because despite myself I was fascinated by him and his motivations, and also I suppose an element of me foolishly wanted to save him. We think of footballers as being overpaid, womanising men who perhaps spend more time on their appearance than their IQs, and George was particularly intelligent, I've discovered since. And very naturally curious in other people, which most celebrities have sucked out of them because they're not used to talking about anything except themselves. And he was also very witty, so he overturned all those stereotypes. What I learned about addiction during my time with George was that it matures like a person. It has its own facets and it can go in and out of them. So George might be one person when he was quite drunk, another person when he was very, very drunk, and a completely different person when he was sober. The lies, it's impossible to get used to the amount that addicts lie about everything, about things that are seemingly unimportant, just never cease to amaze me. There were many memorable moments over that summer, but I think by far the most memorable and the most shocking for me was sitting down with George and hearing him plan, in fact, his own death, which was just such an extraordinary thing, not least because he seemed to be relishing the thought of it. Because I'd only just started in journalism, I had a slightly warped view after my experience with George, because I thought, my God, is this what journalism is all about? You get sent off for 3 months at a time to be with sort of one of the most famous men in Britain. As it turned out, that wasn't at all what the rest of my career ended up being like. But it did give me an insight into the world of tabloid journalism and quite how far the press will go to get their exclusive. But what shocked me most of all, I think, is the way that celebrities collude with the press. So it's not so much that we're always intruding on celebrities' private lives. A lot of the time they want you to. They actively encourage it, and they feel completely forlorn if you ignore them. I'm hoping that Babysitting George will be interesting to a whole group of different people. I think girls will find it interesting because of the idea of a young girl being sent out to be with this older man in a kind of lost in translation style relationship. I think that obviously people who are interested in George Best will hopefully find it fascinating, this very insider glimpse into the workings of his mind and his last days. But I think anyone interested in celebrity will be able to see the larger significance of it. I think everywhere we look, we have these celebrities living car crash lives, and we're actually watching them disintegrate in front of our eyes. And this is something that is very much reflected in the book. What makes me sad about the way we now remember George is that it's probably exactly the way he didn't want to be remembered, which is just as a flawed genius. I mean, he'd be happy to think we still think of him as a genius, and we do, and nobody's really overtaken him. But I'd like to remember him as a particularly witty man who loved alcohol. It was his biggest love affair, and in many ways he died the way he wanted to die.